Would you stand alone, even if it meant your life? This is the story of three young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who stood when everyone else bowed. Faced with the threat of death in a blazing furnace, they made a decision that would echo through history. Stay tuned as we uncover how courage, conviction, and faith saved them from the flames, and how their story speaks to your life today. The city of Jerusalem had fallen. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had taken the best and brightest young men from Israel as captives, forcing them to live in a foreign land with foreign gods and foreign customs. Among them were three young Hebrews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Trained in Babylon's language and culture, they rose to positions of influence in the king's court. But though they served the king, their hearts belonged to the God of Israel. Little did they know, their loyalty would soon be tested in a way they never imagined. One day, Nebuchadnezzar set up a massive golden statue, 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide, on the plain of Dura. He gathered all the officials, including Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and made an announcement. When the music plays, you must all bow down and worship this golden image. Anyone who refuses will be thrown into a blazing furnace. As the music began to play, flutes, harps, and horns echoing across the plains, thousands dropped to their knees. But three men remained standing. Some of the king's advisors, jealous of the Hebrews' success, rushed to Nebuchadnezzar. "Your Majesty," they sneered, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have refused to bow to your image. They defy your command." The king's face turned red with fury. "Bring them to me," he thundered. The three young men stood before the raging king. Nebuchadnezzar leaned forward and snarled, "I will give you one more chance. When the music plays, bow down, or you will be thrown into the furnace. What God can save you from my hand?" The pressure to fit in is real. But standing for what is right, even when you stand alone, sets you apart as a true person of courage and faith. The room grew tense as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood firm. Without fear, they answered the king. "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us. But even if he does not, we will not serve your gods or worship the image you have set up." The court fell silent. No one had ever spoken to the king like this before. Nebuchadnezzar's face twisted with rage. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, so hot that the flames roared like a raging beast. The king commanded his strongest soldiers to tie the three men up and throw them into the furnace. The heat was so intense that the flames killed the soldiers as they approached the fire. Bound hand and foot, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell into the blazing furnace. The onlookers watched, expecting to hear screams. But instead, there was silence. Nebuchadnezzar leaned forward, his eyes widening in shock. The king stood to his feet and shouted, "Didn't we throw 3 men into the fire? Look, I see 4 men, walking freely in the flames, unbound and unharmed. And the 4th looks like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar ran toward the furnace, shielding his face from the heat. "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, come out, servants of the Most High God." The 3 men walked out, completely untouched. Not a hair on their heads was burned, their clothes were not scorched, they didn't even smell like smoke. Faith is not just believing God can save you. It's trusting him even if he doesn't. True faith holds on, no matter the cost, knowing God is always with you in the fire. The crowd stood in stunned silence as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked out of the flames. Even the king's officials, who had once accused them, were left speechless. Nebuchadnezzar's anger melted into awe. He raised his voice before all the people gathered. "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied my command. They were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own." The king's words echoed across the plains as thousands listened. The mighty king of Babylon, once the enemy of God's people, made a new law. No one in any nation or language may speak against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, for no other God can save in this way. Not only were they spared, they were promoted. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were honored and given greater authority in Babylon. But they knew the real honor was not from the king. It was from God, the one who had stood with them in the fire. Though centuries have passed since that fiery day in Babylon, the story of these three young men lives on. Their courage challenges us today. They didn't bend. They didn't bow. And because of their faith, they didn't burn. Their story reminds us that God still walks with those who stand for Him, whether in a classroom, a workplace, or even when facing the hardest decisions of life. God doesn't promise to keep us out of the fire, but He does promise to be with us in it. Your faith can inspire others to see God's power at work, even in life's most impossible moments.